Okay, so imagine this, right? You walk into your favorite store, ready to finally buy that Tommy Hilfiger jacket or that Calvin Klein bag you've been wanting,
Yeah.
and they're gone.
Poof.
Yeah, like vanished. All because of some political controversy. It sounds crazy, right?
It's happening.
It is. This is the situation unfolding right now with PVH Corp,
It's right.
the company behind those brands. And their business in China is a mess.
Big mess. Big mess.
You sent us a whole stack of articles about it. This investigation, possible sanctions, and something I had never even heard of before.
Oh, the unreliable entity list.
Yeah, the unreliable entity list. So let's deep dive into all this. We have some news articles, a couple of research papers about China's economic policies, I think,
Yeah.
and even some internal memos from PVH.
Oh, wow. You really went deep.
Well, you said you wanted to understand all this better, so.
This is going to be good.
So where do we even start?
Well, let's start with the backdrop.
Okay.
China. China is a major player for global apparel brands, both for manufacturing and as a huge consumer market.
Makes sense.
So for companies like PVH, navigating the political landscape there, it's just as important as like managing your supply chains.
Absolutely. PVH is huge in the clothing industry, and they rely so heavily on China.
Oh, yeah.
So then what are they even being investigated for?
So China's Ministry of Commerce, they're investigating PVH for allegedly boycotting cotton from the Xinjiang region.
Okay, so what's the deal with the Xinjiang cotton? Why is that such a big deal?
So Xinjiang, it's become a real point of contention between China and a lot of Western countries.
Okay.
See, there are concerns about forced labor practices in the region, particularly targeting the Uyghur population.
Right.
This has led to the U.S. and others banning goods from Xinjiang.
Ah, okay. And PVH, being an American company, they're probably following those U.S. regulations, right?
Exactly.
That would explain the whole boycott thing.
Yeah, they've even said publicly that they comply with the laws of all the countries they do business in.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which strongly suggests they're following the U.S. restrictions on that Xinjiang cotton.
Okay, but that puts them in a tough spot.
Okay.
Because China sees these restrictions as like meddling in their internal affairs.
Huge problem for them.
So they're basically stuck between a rock and a hard place.
They are.
Follow U.S. regulations, risk China's wrath, ignore them, face backlash in the West. It's a no-win situation.
It really is. And to add to the tension, there have even been reports of Chinese consumers boycotting Western brands
Oh, wow.
that have expressed concerns about Xinjiang.
So it's not just the government they have to worry about.
Nope.
Public opinion, too.
This consumer activism, it's a whole other layer of complexity for companies like PVH.
I remember reading that other big brands like H&M, Nike, Adidas all had similar issues in China.
Oh, yeah?
Because of the Xinjiang cotton thing.
Oh, there's a definite pattern here. And this is where we have to understand how China's unreliable entity list comes into play.
Okay, break that down for me. Unreliable entity list. What happens if you get put on that list?
So it's basically a tool that China uses to penalize foreign entities
Okay.
that they deem harmful to their national interests.
Yeah.
The penalties, those can include import and export restrictions, investment bans, even fines.
Whoa, okay, so it's pretty serious. But have they actually used it on any companies before?
Up until now, it's mainly been used against defense companies. However, the fact that PVH is being investigated suggests they might be expanding the scope of this list, potentially targeting companies in other sectors.
Oh, okay, so like a warning shot.
Maybe. And the consequences for PVH could be substantial, impacting their supply chains, manufacturing, even their sales in China.
So potentially losing access to the Chinese market is a very real possibility.
It is. And even if they don't get officially added to the list, the investigation itself creates uncertainty, and that can damage their reputation in China,
Yeah, that makes sense.
leading consumers to choose, well, local brands over them.
So PVH really is walking a tightrope.
They are.
Pressure from both sides.
This whole thing just highlights how political global supply chains are becoming,
Yeah.
where companies are being forced to navigate these complex political landscapes and make these really tough choices. That could have a big impact on their business.
I mean, it's not just the apparel industry, right?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
We're seeing this trend across all sorts of sectors.
So what options does a company like PVH even have?
Well, they're not completely powerless. They could try to, engage in a dialogue
Okay.
with Chinese authorities,
Right.
emphasize their commitment to complying with Chinese laws, while also explaining the constraints they face because of those U.S. regulations.
Right.
But it's a delicate dance.
Yeah.
China has a strong stance on Xinjiang. They expect companies to play by their rules.
So playing the diplomacy card is one option, but seems pretty risky if China won't budge. Are there any other avenues PVH could explore?
They could try to diversify.
Diversify.
Their sourcing and manufacturing.
Oh, okay. So move some production away from China.
Yeah, to other countries.
But wouldn't that be super expensive?
It definitely wouldn't be easy.
And complicated. I mean, China is the manufacturing hub of the world.
Oh, it is, especially for clothes.
Right.
It wouldn't be cheap.
No.
But it's a move more and more companies are at least thinking about.
Why is that?
I mean, the trade war between the U.S. and China, all these geopolitical tensions.
Right.
It's shown that relying too heavily on one country can be a really big risk.
So spreading out production, even if it costs a bit more, could be a way to protect themselves from these political storms.
Exactly. It's like a strategic hedge.
I like that.
And it's not just about production.
Yeah. What else?
PVH could also try to diversify where they sell their stuff.
Okay.
Focus on growing in other regions.
Makes sense.
To gallus out any potential losses in China.
So this whole situation with China might actually force PVH to become a more globally resilient company. Less dependent on any single market.
That's a great way to put it.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket, right?
Exactly. This crisis might push them.
Push PVH.
Yeah, to rethink their whole global strategy,
Wow.
Making them more adaptable and resilient in the face of, future geopolitical and economic shifts.
It's kind of amazing how something that seems like such a specific issue, this disagreement over where cotton comes from, can have such huge implications for a company's global operations.
It really is a prime example of the challenges businesses face in a world that's both interconnected and fragmented globalization. It created amazing opportunity.
Oh, yeah, for growth and expansion.
But it's also exposed companies to these new risks and complexities.
Sounds like playing a high-stakes game.
It is.
Where the rules keep changing and you got to be quick on your feet to survive.
Precisely. And one key lesson from all this, from PVH's experience,
is
the importance of really understanding and managing political risks.
Okay.
It's not enough for companies to just focus on making money anymore.
Right.
They need to be aware of the political landscape.
Okay.
Anticipate potential conflicts and develop strategies to mitigate those risks.
So it's like adding another layer of difficulty to an already tough business environment.
And it requires companies to become more sophisticated in how they deal with governments.
Right.
Okay. Engaging with policymakers in their home countries and the countries where they do business.
Right.
Building strong relationships.
Okay.
Understanding local sensitivities.
Yeah.
Advocating for policies that support a stable and predictable business environment.
Right.
It's all crucial in this, new world order.
So in a way, this whole situation with PVH, it's a wake-up call for businesses?
I think so.
Urging them to become more nuanced and proactive in how they manage global operations in this era of heightened political risk.
Exactly. And it's not just PVH. This is a challenge.
Yeah.
Every global business is facing.
Right.
As we move forward.
Yeah.
In this increasingly interconnected world, companies need to be ready to navigate.
I like that word, navigate.
A complex web of competing interests, values, and regulations.
Sounds like a fascinating and challenging time to be an international business.
It is. It really highlights the need for leaders who are not only skilled business strategists, but also savvy diplomats.
Okay.
And cultural ambassadors.
Wow.
Capable of building bridges.
Yeah.
And finding common ground in an increasingly divided world.
PVH's story, it's just one example of how the global landscape is shifting and the new challenges businesses are facing.
Definitely.
But how does this impact, consumers like me?
That's a good question.
Should we be concerned about our favorite brands, vanishing from stores?
It's possible.
Or getting more expensive?
It's possible that we'll see some changes in the availability and pricing of certain products as companies diversify their supply chains and navigate all these political challenges. There could be some, disruptions and adjustments.
So it's not all doom and gloom, is there?
Oh, not at all.
Are there any potential positive outcomes from all of this?
Absolutely. There are a few potential positives.
Okay. What are those?
One positive outcome could be, a greater focus on ethical and sustainable sourcing.
Oh, interesting. So, fair trade.
Kinda, yeah. As consumers demand more responsible practices, companies are being incentivized to improve their supply chains.
Makes sense.
Which could benefit both workers and the environment.
Right. I mean, consumers are becoming more aware of where their products come from.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And how they're made.
For sure.
They want more transparency.
Absolutely.
And accountability from the companies they support.
The good thing.
Yeah. And this consumer pressure, it's a powerful force for driving change.
Big time. Another potential positive.
Okay, what's that?
Is the rise of new manufacturing hubs in different parts of the world.
Interesting.
As companies try to, reduce their reliance on any one country.
So like spreading things out a little bit?
Exactly.
So we might see more opportunities for jobs and economic growth in regions that haven't traditionally been part of like the global supply chain?
That's right. This shift could lead to a more balanced and resilient global economy.
Okay, so a rising tide lifts all boats.
Sort of. It's not just about companies moving production around, though.
What else is it about?
It's also about recognizing that trade.
Yeah.
It isn't just about economics.
Really?
Yeah, it's about values, principles, the kind of world we want to live in,
As we wrap up this deep dive, I'm just struck by how this whole story about PVH and their situation in China, it's opened up this whole new perspective for me on how business, politics, and ethics
it's all connected.
Are all intertwined in the 21st century.
Oh, they are. And it's a reminder that we as consumers have a role to play in shaping all this.
Oh, really?
Through our choices and our voices.
I like that.
We can support companies that align with our values, demand greater transparency, hold businesses accountable for their actions.
It feels like we've only scratched the surface here.
We have.
Of a much larger conversation.
There's a lot more to talk about.
Yeah, the political landscape, it's constantly shifting.
Always.
And companies are still trying to figure out how to navigate these uncharted waters.
Oh, yeah, for sure. As a final thought, I would encourage you to think critically about the information you come across and the products you choose.
Right.
Ask yourself, where do they come from? Who made them? And what impact are they having on the world?
Wow.
Your choices matter.
They do. That's a great point to end on. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
My pleasure.
And for everyone listening, remember, keep learning, stay curious, and make informed decisions that help shape a better future for all of us.